This is Securing Flask Web Applications with JWT and CSRF by Solomon Esenyi.
Okay.
Take it away.
Okay. Good day, everyone. So Solomon is saying, and I'm giving a talk on securing Flask Web Applications with JWT and CSRF tokens. Okay. So a little about myself. I'm an 18-year-old technical writer at Hashnode and Twilio Python Voices, CTO of CleanPeak. I'm a cybersecurity personnel, Python developer with specialization in artificial intelligence and web development. So what to expect from this session? So at the end of this session, you should have learned about CSRF tokens and cross-site request forgery attacks and how to prevent them in your web applications. You should also be educated on how to use JSON Web Tokens to securely transfer data over API requests. So request forgery attacks. So this is a type of malicious exploit of a website where unauthorized commands are transmitted from a user that the web application trusts. So in a CSRF attack, an innocent end user is tricked by an attacker into submitting a web request that they did not intend, which may cause actions to be performed on the website that can include client or server data leakage, change of session state, or manipulation of an end user account. So basically, what CSRF attacks are is just basically a an attacker tricking a website to execute commands through a victim that the website trusts already. So CSRF attacks are also known by other names such as XSRF, CSOF, and many other. So this is a basic example of a CSRF attack. So first, the victim logs into their online bank account. Then the bank assigns the victim a validation token. Then the hacker sends a forged request disguised as legitimate communication from the bank. Then the victim unknowingly forwards that request to the bank. Then through that request that the victim makes, the hacker is able to execute commands on the platform through the victim. So effects of a successful CSRF attack. If a CSRF attack is successful, a hacker might be able to change a victim's email address of a website, change their password, make funds transfer from a victim online bank, gain full control over a victim's account, and if possible, gain administrator privileges of a website. So let's go over some prevention methods that don't work for CSRF tokens. So number one, using a secret cookie. So to an attempt to block CSRF attacks. So web developers might try to use secret cookies to pass their request, but this technique does not actually work because as long as the cookies will be involved, will be included in the request, CSRF attack is still possible. So web developers also try to build their web applications in a way that they only accept post requests, but this does not also work because a a hacker can build can initiate a CSRF attack through forms where they build a form that accepts post request, then use JavaScript to trigger the form to execute a CSRF attack. So multi-step user transactions. Okay, this does not also work in preventing CSRF attacks. Also, you are only writing using HTTPS, but there is one way that actually works when you're trying to prevent CSRF attacks, and that is using CSRF tokens. So a CSRF token is a unique, secret, unpredictable value that is generated by the server-side application and transmitted to the client in such a way that it is included in a subsequent HTTP request made by the client. when the later request is made, the server-side application validates that the request includes the expected token and rejects the request if the token is missing or invalid. So preventing CSRF attacks in Flask Web Applications. So by default, any form request using Flask form, which is an extension, is already protected from this attack by using CSRF tokens. But for forms not using the Flask form extension, we can still implement CSRF tokens for those. So getting started with the Flask form extension. So you can install it through pip using pip install flask-wtf or easy install, or you can clone the code from the repository. So implementing CSRF using the Flask form extension. So we set up so for this example, we're going to set up a tiny web app. We import Flask, we import Flask WTF, import the CSRF protect module. We create our Flask application. We create our secret key for our app, our CSRF secret key, create a route that we're going to send requests to. And then in our HTML, and then in our template where we have a form that I want to submit, we include a CSRF token in the form. So when this page is rendered, it is assigned a random value. So this value right here is the CSRF token. So now every request that is being sent must contain the CSRF token. So when the CSRF token goes to the backend, it is validated, and then if it is legitimate, the request will run. But if a hacker tries to forge a request, it won't be successful. So let's go over to another part, which is JSON Web Tokens. So the JSON Web Token is a open standard that defines a compact and self-contained way for securely transmitting information between parties as a JSON object. JSON Web Tokens can be sent through a URL, through a post parameter, or inside the HTTP header. A JSON Web Token contains all the required information about an entity to avoid querying a database more than once. Features of JWT. Number one, it's secure. JWTs can use a public or private key pair for signing. It can also be symmetrically signed by a shared secret using the HMAC algorithm. Number two, it is work with JWT. Another feature of JWT is they are easy to process. JWT is used at internet scale. This means that it is easy to process on a user's device, especially mobile. Can also be used for authorization. Once a user is successfully logged in, an application may request to access routes, services, or resources on behalf of that user. To do so, in every request, it must pass an access token, which may be in the form of a JWT. And JWT is like a good way of securely transmitting information between parties because the data are who they say they are. Additionally, destroy the content having been tampered with. So let's look at the traditional way of transmitting data over an API and then using JWT. So normally, if you want to send data to an API, you include it in a JSON format. So let's take this example: sub 1 to 0, name John Doe, admin true. This is the data that is passed to an API. So the bad sides of using a plain method like this is it it can be intercepted by hackers on the network. It can be intercepted through Bob suits and many other applications to edit the data and do all manner of things. But using JWT, it is encrypted in a way that only the server and the client only knows the data that is actually being passed. So now implementing GWTs in Flask Web Applications. JWT features can be included in the Flask Web app using the Flask JWT extension. It provides all necessary things required to set up JWT. So installing the Flask JWT extension, we use pip through pip install flask-jwt. Okay, so now implementing JWT, small web application for testing JWT, import flags, import JWT, group of IDs, and import user is valid and identify function. You can be to like
Hello, Solomon. Are you there? It looks like we might have dropped you.
okay, let me go back. Okay, let me go over this again. So I was going through an implementation of Flask JWT.
You'll need to share your screen one more time.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Can you see my screen? Okay. Okay, so I was going over an implementation of Flask JWT. So we set up a tiny Flask web application by importing the necessary libraries, Flask, then Flask JWT. And we created a class, a user class for our web app, then created created a list of users, and then created the username and user ID tables. So for Flask, for JWT for us to initialize JWT, we need to create two functions. The first is an authenticate function, which is used to authenticate that a user is actually valid on our web app, and then an identity function, which we would use to identify which user is which. So we set up our app is equal to Flask, set our secret key, initialize our app, then create a root which is protected protected with JWT. So we use the at JWT required decorator. So that would tell Flask that this root can only be accessed via JWT. So to get a token from the authentication resource, all we have to do is just send a request to whatever route that we, whatever route we define username and our password. And then we should, we'll be giving our JWT access token. So anytime API that is protected with JWT, we have to pass the access token accessing the web app. And then if we wanted to actually like send a request, all we have to do is include JWT in our authorization with the JW token that we pass, and then we'll be able to access any part of the API that is authenticated, that is protected with JWT. Okay, so I'm ending the slide here before listening to this session.
Great. Thank you for the talk, Solomon.
Thank you.
We had a bit of a connection issue in the middle, but I think we all recovered. Sounds like people were hearing everything just fine after that. Waiting for any questions to come in for a little bit. I'll ask a question. I saw a website in the middle of your presentation, JWT.io. Is that a site you use a lot? What does it do?
Yes. Okay, JWT.io, like this is like
Hey, Solomon, can you try
an
unsharing your screen?
official documentation for JWT. So it just contains information about basically anything that you want to know about JWT. And on the website where you can just like this.
Cool. I think some lag issues are caused by your screen share, so I stopped sharing your screen. But you can still answer questions.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, I've seen that you only showed the access token. Do you also use the refresh token? And in point of that, how long do you set the time with when the tokens expire? This is something I'm struggling with a little bit.
So you're asking for when JWT's token expire.
Yeah, what is a good time for that?
Okay, well, it really depends. Okay, well, the thing is, you actually set when you want your tokens to expire, actually, but you can also set them. Okay, okay, how will I put it? Okay, so GW tokens are like the way we use sessions in Flask. So normally, if you wanted to like store a user session in Flask, would you use the session, and then it has like a default default expiry date of like a month. So GWTs are just like an alternative for sessions, but over an API. In this example, I did not show how to set expiry dates for GWT tokens.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I have a question from YouTube. What do you advise if you want to use a Flask app to authenticate with OAuth to another website? Do you have any recommendations?
Or I don't actually.
What kind of data do you store in the payload of the JWT tokens?
Okay, basically we store the user identifier in the JWT tokens. So like I said earlier with Flask sessions, when building a Flask app, we store the user ID. Okay, let's take for example, user has logged into a website. So we store like their ID in the session. So if you want to make a request and they want to identify which user made the request, we use that Flask ID. we'll use the session ID of the user ID. So we store that same data in the JWT. We just store a user ID. It is not advisable to store like huge amounts of data in JWT because it is sent in every request to the server. So if you store a large amount of data in the JWT, it will cause lags while trying to make API requests. So it is advisable to just store things like maybe a username, database row ID, something to uniquely identify a user.
Thank you. Can I follow on? Yeah.
Okay.
So when you only store the identifier of the user, I assume that you will load the user from the database on each request to gain more information, like a role, for example, or the permissions he has.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I think we're going to call it. Thank you again, Solomon, for your talk. And thanks everybody for tuning in.